to a Hope 1032 podcast.
As followers of Jesus, in whom all things were made, we acknowledge the Darug people as the traditional custodians of the country where this podcast is recorded. We recognise their continuing connection to the land and waters and thank them for protecting this land and its ecosystems since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today.
Hope Book Club with Georgia and Simone. Because life's just better with a book.
Hi, I'm Georgia.
And I'm Simone.
And welcome to episode 52 of the Hope Book Club podcast, where we gush about books and talk about literature from a hope-filled Christian lens. And we hope this podcast makes you think, makes you laugh, and most of all, makes you read.
In this episode, we're diving into the beautiful world of children's books. We'll be talking to 3 different children's authors who have each created some incredible books that make a difference. We're going to be sharing our favourite books as kids and also some comments from you.
To kick off this episode, we have a very special guest with us. Joining us is children's book author, former radio host, and the founder of this podcast, Katrina Roe. Katrina's book Same won first place in the Australian Picture Books category of the Foreverbility Awards, which celebrate books which focus on diversity, disability and difference. Same is based on a true story about Katrina's brother Charlie, who has cerebral palsy. In the book, Ivy is scared of her uncle Charlie because he's different. However, Charlie finds a way to show Ivy that he's not so different after all. Katrina, welcome back to the podcast. It is great to have you here.
Oh, Georgia, thanks for having me back. It's lovely to be here.
Now, the inspiration for this book was actually based on a specific interaction with one of your kids, with Charlie. What happened?
Yeah, so what happened was, and it's many years ago now, Georgia, but when my oldest daughter was about 3 years old, my brother came over to our house and he kind of, came through the front door in his wheelchair and she ran away and hid. And I was at the time a little bit heartbroken because, as you can imagine, when you've grown up as a sibling with someone with a disability, there were all these moments from childhood where people would kind of look the other way, they would cross the street or even make rude kind of spastic sort of, gestures and things like that. So it brought up a lot of heartache for me. What happened throughout the day was that, as we went about our day, Charlie tried to reach out to her, but it was hard because he was slightly separated from her. Like he couldn't exactly join in with what she was doing throughout the day. What happened though was that she did a drawing and, a 3-year-old drawing is, it was colourful, it was bright, it was beautiful, but it was also very abstract. And then later that night when she went to bed, Uncle Charlie said, I want to do a drawing for her. And because of his disability, his drawing looked like hers. But he also wrote her this beautiful message telling her that he loved her. And the next day she found it at the breakfast table and she took it over to the fridge where her drawings were stuck up. And she pointed at the fridge and she said, "On there, Mum, on there." And so I stuck Charlie's drawing up next to her drawings and she just stepped back and she looked at them and she said, "Same," with this beaming smile. "Same, Mum." And I was like, oh, yes, same. And I think it was just one of those moments that I wanted to share because even as it happened, I could really appreciate the resonance of, what she was saying, what Charlie had done, the way he'd humbled himself as, a 40-something-year-old man at that time to do a drawing like hers. It was just, there was a lot of beauty in the moment and I really wanted to share it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I love that your books, this one especially, they always have a deeper message. And I love that Same is still getting the recognition it deserves 9 years later. What do you hope that this, new crop of readers that are hopefully going to find this book get out of it?
Well, I think the first thing is that it's a gift to Charlie, so it gives him a voice and it helps him to be heard. For the reader, I think there are many, many families like ours for whom this resonates as well, that they live with disability or chronic illness or something like this that is a daily struggle. And so for them, I think it helps them to feel seen and understood. I think for kids, it helps them to understand that it's actually okay to be a bit afraid, but that you can overcome that. And hopefully they can learn to see that even though difference is very obvious, you can find ways to connect, and it does take effort sometimes to find the things that are the same. But the other thing I have to say about this book, Georgia, although it is very much written for kids, it is also a little bit of a reaching the parent or the grandparent by stealth, because the fact is that throughout my life, I have often seen even my own friends and adults shying away from speaking to Charlie, or there have been times when people, speak to him very loudly. How are you, Charlie? And so, I think that adults have that fear in themselves too. If I were to have written that story about an adult, it would have been very confronting. In a child, it's socially acceptable in that they haven't learnt yet, but we actually have those same feelings ourselves. And I guess I want the book to say it's okay that you feel this way, that you feel cautious about approaching someone, or that you feel worried that you won't know what to say. But you can overcome it, and even a child can learn to. So I think there is a bit of a message in there for the adult sharing the book as well.
I also want to touch on your personal journey as a sibling, having a sibling with a disability. I have a sibling with a chronic illness. It's a very unique kind of situation, because you're not the parent and you feel this kind of need to protect, and yet they're peers. Like, there's such complex feelings. How did you navigate that growing up, and how has that kind of evolved as you and Charlie have both, grown up as well?
Yeah, I think, Georgie, you really nailed it. It is complex. It would be really hard for me to sum up, a lifetime in a short answer. I guess there's always been the love and acceptance in our family for Charlie. We've always felt, blessed that he survived his difficult birth, rather than, disappointed that he has a disability. So I think that my parents really framed that as the narrative for us in our family, that Charlie was precious part of our family, and that we were very lucky that he lived, because he nearly didn't. As a teenager, I did feel very angry. There were times when I felt angry. I felt it was unfair, particularly if Charlie suffered from any additional illnesses or had to have extra surgeries or things. It's like, he's been through enough. It's just not fair. I think I probably didn't necessarily understand those feelings at the time. It's only in hindsight that I can see that that's what the anger was, because I used to get really angry if people used the word spastic. I used to get really angry if people made fun of other people with a disability. As I got older, I think as a young adult, I probably lived a bit vicariously. I wanted to do all the things that Charlie couldn't do. I think it made me really want to try everything, want to do everything. Like, even with playing sports, I knew Charlie couldn't play sports, so I tried things, or I wanted to travel and have adventures and do things, because I was really aware of, how blessed I was to be able and to have opportunities. But I think there was a while where I wanted, Charlie to be an overcomer, because all the kind of media perceptions are that, of disabled people, they're climbing mountains, or they're going in the Paralympics, or they're not going to let anything stop them to achieve their dreams. And it took me a while to realise that just wasn't who Charlie is. He's just a really normal guy. He just enjoys drinking his coffee, catching up with family, watching his favourite quiz show, like drinking wine. Like, he enjoys the simple things. And so I kind of had to get over that as well, that expectation that, because you have a disability, you have to be a great overachiever. And it took me a while to realise that actually, in spite of or because of his disability, he's really is just a really normal kind of guy.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Katrina, you actually just got back from Melbourne, the Kids Lit Victoria conference. You said you learned a lot about kind of what publishers might be looking for. If there are any Kids Lit authors that are listening, aspiring Kids Lit authors, do you have some tips that might help them along?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the benefit of going to a big conference like Kid Lit Vic is that it just gets you up to date with what publishers are looking for now and the differences between the different kind of publishers. So even if you can't afford to go to one of these conferences, get on their website and check out who's appearing. And, you can get the names of those publishers, and then you can look at what kind of books that they publish and what they're interested in. And there'll often be a few notes about what they are looking for, even in the programs of these conferences. And they're quite open about that. It's a great source of information. I think that, as always, like a lot of the tips are about just being as professional as you can. So make sure that your work is as polished as it can be before you send it out. I think a lot of people make the mistake of writing a story and then going, oh, my story's amazing, and then they just send it out to a publisher. Well, you only get one chance to put your work before that publisher. So you really should enter it in some competitions first, take it to a critique group, a writing group. The feedback of your mum, the feedback of your child is completely irrelevant. They might think it's wonderful, but that doesn't mean anything. They love you. They're going to think it's wonderful. So that was actually probably one of the key themes of the conference. Never write in and say, my 5-year-old loves this. My mum loves this, because, that's a big no-no. But do get as much feedback as you can before you send anything out. And, and then the other thing is just really get your pitch as concise as you can. You've got to know how to describe your book in one sentence. You've got to know how to write a blurb which is intriguing but still leaves you hanging and wanting more. And then you've got to write a synopsis which is a full description of everything, all the twists and turns and all the plot reveals. And you want a one-page synopsis. So you need to have all that stuff ready to go. But don't do any of that until you've got a really fantastic manuscript that's the absolute best it can be.
Oh, fantastic. Honestly, I admire authors. It's so much work. I couldn't do it.
It is a really hard slog. And the other thing you need to know, Georgia, which I had this conversation with another aspiring newbie on the weekend, was you'll hear people say the real work is after the book is published, and that is absolutely true. The work you do to get the book published is probably somewhere between a 5th to a 10th that you need to do to promote that book and get it out into the world.
Oh, incredible. Well, Katrina, I know you're a busy woman these days. You're busy running 40 book clubs in the Riverina region. Puts our little one podcast to a bit of shame here. But do you have any new work coming through the pipeline? Anything you can share? Or is it tight-lipped?
Writing work?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a stack of things, Georgia. So you know how I have the Australia's Invisible History podcast?
Yes.
We've got 30 stories of amazing Australians. I thought many of those would be great kids' books, so I've started writing a couple of kind of historically based nonfiction picture books. I have been working on a fairy tale. This is a middle grade coming of age adventure for girls 9 to 12, set on the Isle of Skye in Scotland and based on 3 really ancient Scottish fairy tales. And I've been writing that more for myself just for fun, but that's been a lot of fun to work on. And then I also have been working on a picture book script, which is for all those kids who never win a prize at presentation day. Oh. Because after yet another presentation day when none of my kids got anything, I just thought, there are some kids who just aren't good at schooly things. But, there are many other things that they're good at and that bring joy. So if I can just give you a couple of lines from it, it says, "Oh, how I wish there was a prize for laughing loud with twinkly eyes."
Oh, I'm going to cry. That is beautiful. I'm sure that'll resonate with so many families, so many kids out there. Well, same. The recent picture book winner of the 2022 Foreverbility Awards is out now wherever you get good books. I implore you to pick it up from your library, from your bookstore. Katrina Roe, it has been a pleasure having you back on Hope Book Club. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, thank you so much, Georgia.
Now let's answer some comments that we've gotten over the past couple of weeks. These ones are from our Facebook page where we ask people about their favourite children's books. Sim?
So, Michelle, thank you for commenting. You talked about The Folk of the Faraway Tree. You said the one with the orange hardcover and the old school illustrations.
Oh, did you ever own Faraway Tree? Sorry.
So many of them.
Is that a silly question?
Yes.
I don't think the full collection, but I remember having a really, really thick novel. For the longest time, it was the thickest book I ever owned, and it must have been a compilation of a whole bunch of the stories, but it was so fun.
So fun. I remember my friend actually starting to read them to her kids as well when she started having kids. And like right from the start, that was like the first set she wanted to read to them.
And it's so great because Enid Blyton, she has a real accessibility in terms of fantasy. You really get into the world and the stories.
Yes.
And it's so great for kids that are like still learning to read and learning to love books. Totally.
It's great. So Sue also said that she had just too many to list, which I totally understand.
Relatable.
But she said The Mirror by Jeannie Baker is exceptional. I hadn't heard of that one. Looked it up. Looks incredible. Like, I want to read that one now.
Yeah, I think I actually looked this one up as well. Is this it tells like two opposing stories of a child in Morocco and then a child in Sydney, and kind of like shows the differences but also the similarities of their lives?
Yes. Oh. And it looks so good. I really want to find that one. Carolyn said Yertle the Turtle by Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
Of course. And Dogger by Shirley Hughes. And then Sue said so many lovely books. A favourite of my son's was Who Sank the Boat by Pamela Allen. And when he was older, I read My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George to him. We loved it. It was probably one of the last books I read to him because he became an independent reader. Very sad, but great that he still loves reading, and so do I.
It must be a really tough thing as a parent to like know that you've instilled that love of reading in your kids, and then eventually that you don't realise you've read to them for the last time.
Yes.
And then they go off and read by themselves.
I know. It's like that moment, but then at the same time, if you still read some of the books they read as well, you can still have those little moments then of like talking, your own little like book club with your kids.
Oh, that's so true. That is so true. Love those comments. Thanks, Sim. Next up, we also had the joy of speaking to Debra Tidball, a local Sydney children's book author, about her new book, Anchored. Let's get into it. Our next guest on this episode is award-winning children's author Debra Tidball, whose recent release, Anchored, tells the story of Ship and Tug, a cargo ship and a little tugboat who are connected by love despite being separated by danger and distance. Debra, thank you so much for joining us. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Oh, so pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Debra, what inspired you to write this book in the first place?
Oh, Simone, I think a number of influences for this book. I think the main one was moving from the upper North Shore to the lower North Shore. So from the leafy suburbs to like around near the harbour. And on my harbourside walks, I was seeing a lot of working watercraft, and I was just really fascinated by it, especially the tugboats. And I got to thinking about how they're small and yet they're powerful, and I started to think maybe this is sort of a story about being small and powerful. And then I also was thinking about how they are constantly farewelling and welcoming back ships, and about how that might feel. And then I looked across at Garden Island and I saw the Navy ships, and that reminded me of when my dad was in the RAF. And he went to Vietnam when I was about 6 years old. And all of those thoughts about longing and loss and missing him and thinking about whether he was thinking about me, all of those thoughts sort of came back. And I think when I hit on that, it was the emotional connection I needed for this story.
Wow. I didn't know that you had such a personal connection to that.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. Debra, you did touch on obviously that personal connection. Who is this book for? What's the message that you hope it sends to both parents and kids?
Georgia, I think this book actually is for everybody, and I've had people who are buying it for their adult children as they're leaving home, as well as for younger children. And I've had people come up and go, you know what, I think, Debra, you meant the tug to be the child in the story, but in fact I feel like the tug with my children leaving home and being the ship. So I think it's for everybody, and I think the message is about how that attachment and the bonding and the connection can actually impact our lives today, that knowing that we're anchored in someone's heart actually transforms our lives. It means that, the days are brighter knowing that, someone loves us and we love someone. It's that whole, love feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, that's amazing. So one of the things I love is in the book is the way you depict Ship. Obviously, the parent showing vulnerability, telling Tug that they're scared, lonely. How important is it for children to see that kind of vulnerability from their parents?
Well, I think it's important to see it, and it's important for them to see how you actually deal with that as well. So I think in this book, Ship's out in the ocean, and he/she. I didn't gender Ship because ships are meant to be female, aren't they? And yet, Ship could be male or female. So Ship's not gendered. Tug is gendered. Tug's a girl. But Ship's out there facing all the elements, and just knowing that there is someone else who they are connected to gives them the strength to be able to deal with the challenges that they face. So I think that's the important message around, yes, we face challenges, and these are the things that help us through.
Yeah. Debra, I also want to touch on, you have a master's degree in children's literature, but you also have social work qualifications, and I could definitely see them coming through in the message of this book. Just how important are the books in general, but also these kinds of books for a child's development?
Oh, I think that they're a real linchpin. I mean, development in a lot of ways, isn't it? We hear a lot about the importance of literacy, and literacy is hugely important. But I think books serve another function as well, and many other functions. And picture books, I think, are particularly special because they're actually often read on the lap of somebody. There's that warmth, there's that comfort, there's that I can deal with anything that happens in the world because I'm sort of surrounded by this love and comfort.
I love that picture of sitting on a parent's lap, or in my case, a grandparent's lap. My grandma just taught me my love of reading. I think that's such a beautiful picture.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I think the messages, with all my books, I don't set out for them to have a particular message, but with all of them, I think they've had something that I think books are really essential because they provide delight often, which I think is important. They provide comfort, and they also help us with a way to navigate the world. One of the things someone says somewhere is love is everything. It's everything. It's the foundation of everything, isn't it? And I think the other thing is that, as a Christian, knowing that you're loved by God is something that is transformative. It does make you braver. It does make, the sea glow brighter, and it does make you feel less alone. So, yeah, I think it has all of those resonances.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Anchored is out on shelves now, written by Debra Tidball and illustrated by Arielle Lee. I implore you to pick it up on your local bookshelves or your library. Debra, it's been a real pleasure having you on the Hope Book Club today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight.
I love how this book really did have a beautiful message, not just for the kids, but the adults who might be reading it as well. I don't know about you, but the illustrations in Anchored really brought up memories of some of my favourite books as a kid.
Yes, the watercolours, the soft kind of, oh.
Yes.
Okay, Sim, what was your favourite book as a kid? Do you have one in particular that you really loved kind of going back to time and time again?
There was one. So it was called Dear Zoo by Rod Campbell. It was basically a child writes to the zoo and asks for a pet, and the zoo sends a series of unsuitable pet before finally sending one that's, perfect. But what I loved about the book was that it sort of, you discovered what the pets were by opening the flaps.
Oh, the flat books are the best, aren't they?
I love them because they're interactive, but they're not all of those the material, all the, the sensory ones where I'm just ugh, I cannot handle more felt. It just,
fair.
Oh, the
too much
sensory
felt.
overload was too much, but the flaps were amazing.
Question for you. Did your mum or dad ever have to do a DIY fix-it on any flaps? Did any flaps ever get ripped?
Yes, many flaps.
Sticky tape situation.
Which kind of leads me into my honourable mention book. which is Where the Wild Things Are. And I loved that book when I was a bit older because it reminded me, or it helped me understand my younger brother, who was the reason for a lot of those ripped flaps. And definitely went through the Where the Wild Things Are angst. And it really helped me actually understand what he was thinking and feeling in a way that I don't think a lot of books were able to do back then. Oh, how about you? What were your favourite books?
Okay. This is really hard for me to choose because I feel like I'm choosing between my children. But I am going to choose 3 favourite children today. Nice. Two favourites. Sorry. I can't quite nail it down to one. So I've got a picture book and a chapter book. Is that acceptable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like different childhood eras.
Okay, my favourite picture book, and this one really was a blast from the past when I remembered it this morning, is Animalia by Graham Base. Did you ever read that book? Yes, so good. It was actually, I only found out that it was released in 1986. I did not realise it was like that old because I remember getting this like brand new shiny edition back in the early 2000s. But Graham Base, like obviously one of Australia's most well-known children's authors.
It was around when I was a kid too.
And every double spread, I'm trying to think of a way to describe it. It's basically a mix between Dr. Seuss and Where's Wally. That's the best way I can describe it because it had these amazingly like alliterative language, these complex words. Every double spread of a page was dedicated to a letter from A to Z and talking about, all these wonderful, fantastical animals. But the illustrations, so complex. You could stare at them for hours and find new things.
And that I think is amazing with children's books in particular because it's so easy to kind of read through that and even with kids like read through it quickly, but something that you can go back to that kids can sit there and just immerse themselves in for, as long as children will sit still and immerse themselves in something.
I also love that it wasn't too simple, that Graham as an author actually trusted the kids that he knew would be reading it with complex ideas, with complex words. And I really love authors that do that. They're like, I tell you what, kids are smarter than we give them credit for.
Absolutely.
So we're going to throw this stuff at them and see where it lands. And one other author I think really did this well was Roald Dahl. I adore all of his books. I had the box collection as a kid, but the one I kept going back to was the BFG. I absolutely loved that book. Read it cover to cover so many times. I often wished I was Sophie just so I could meet the BFG in person, even though I knew it wasn't real. But I love that one when I was a bit older and really kind of cementing my love of reading. Yeah, the BFG for sure. And a special mention to Fox in Socks by Dr. Seuss because love that one too.
It's amazing how you forget just how many books you loved as a kid and just
so
how
many.
important they were to you at that point as well. Finally, we also spoke to Melbourne author Samantha Smith about her book Harriet's Hungry Worms.
Our next guest on the pod today is the amazing Samantha Smith, who is the author of Harriet's Hungry Worms, an adorable and hilarious book which introduces kids to the wonder of composting and worm farms. Sam herself lives in Melbourne with 997 compost worms and an impressive pumpkin vine that's slowly overtaking her backyard. Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I just have a quick question right off the bat. Did you count the worms in your worm farm? How do you know there's 997?
Oh, that's a very good question. Look, when we set up our worm farm, we bought a box of 1,000 worms and my kids have kept a very close eye on it. So we came to that figure by minusing the ones that have managed to escape. It's probably not an overly accurate method, but that's what we're going with at the moment.
I love that.
Sam, when did you first become passionate about composting and worm farming?
Yeah, my father-in-law he's a very passionate worm farmer. He built his worm farm himself and he feeds it daily. He's always taken great delight in sharing any worm news with us each time we visit. But I guess I really became interested in it when my kids started learning about it when they were at kinder and school. So we set one up at home to support their interests and got them involved in feeding the worms our scraps and our coffee grinds and any of their leftover lunch. And that really fueled my interest, I think.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I feel like you might have already mentioned this, but what was it that inspired you to write this particular book, Harriet's Hungry Worms, in the first place?
Yeah, well, we'd set up the worm farm, and I was trying to find a kids' book, like a storybook on composting or worm farming that was fun and informative and one we could kind of sit down at bedtime with for the kids to go with that. And my youngest she was at an age at the time when she just wasn't really interested in sitting down and going through the non-fiction books on composting with me. So when I couldn't find one, I guess that was really inspired me to write one. So we were up on a holiday in gorgeous Magnetic Island a few years ago, and we sat down as a family and wrote the first draft together, which was really fun. It resembles nothing like the last draft now, but that's how we came about it.
So your kids were involved in the whole process?
Yeah, not the whole process. Yes, they sat down. They would like to say they were the whole process, but they definitely sat down and helped me write the first draft. And my daughter's now 8, so she was the target audience age at the time when I was writing it. So she's been an excellent help telling me what she likes and what she doesn't like about it.
That's amazing. And I kind of love how you have really shown that kind of kid being involved, with the kids having responsibilities in the book. What's one accessible way that you can recommend to parents to start this sustainability journey with their kids?
Yeah, look, there's so many simple ways parents can start engaging with their kids on the topic of sustainability at home. I think the most important thing is it's kept simple, and it's part of your daily routine as much as possible. So setting up a worm farm is obviously one, and giving kids the job of sorting the food scraps after dinner or from their lunch boxes when they come home from school to feed the worms. And I think if worms aren't your thing, maybe you could get the kids involved in sorting the recycling. What else? We've started a veggie patch at home and found that growing our own food together, it's just a really beautiful way to learn about sustainable agriculture. So, yeah, I think really it's about the small steps that we can do and that we can incorporate into our daily routine. And I think these really help our children develop an interest in sustainability and positive habits that we need, for protecting the environment in the long term.
Yeah, it's amazing. And some great tips there as well. I also wanted to talk, before you go, about the incredible illustrations in this book by Melissa Johns. They're so unique, and it looks like, well, I'm pretty sure they are made primarily of recycled materials. I saw a real newspaper clipping in there on one page as well. I want to ask, what was the process of finding the illustrator for this book? Did you know Melissa already? Was it kind of an audition process? How did you actually find the right illustrator for the book? Because it seems like it was a very intentional decision.
Yeah, look, Mel, she's done an amazing job at bringing Harriet to life. And you're right, she has used recycled materials throughout. You might have spotted there's the worm's pillow is having a nap on a tea bag, and Walter the dog's actually made from an old bath mat. So there's lots of good things for kids to spot in there. But I hadn't met Mel before. My publisher, Anushka Jones at EK Books, had worked with Mel before on a couple of the EK books. And when Anushka read Harriet, she immediately thought of Mel and thought she'd be a great match to do the illustrations, given the link with the recycled materials. I guess the process was Anushka showed me some of Mel's work, and I immediately fell in love with it too and could see why it would be such a great fit for the story. So Mel presented a few concepts for Harriet and also for the worms to us, and they were brilliant. And so she then went off and prepared the artwork for each page. So it was actually my favourite part of bringing the book to life, is I had the lovely job of just sitting back and seeing all this beautiful artwork come in and not have to do anything. So it was great, very enjoyable.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, Harriet's Hungry Worms is out now, written by the amazing Sam Smith, illustrated by Melissa Johns. Find it wherever you get good books. Sam, it has been a real pleasure having you on Hope Book Club today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We love to hear your thoughts on what you're enjoying reading, so send us a voicemail at 02 9854 7025, or you can leave a post in the Book Club Facebook group. Find all that info in the show notes.
And we'd also love this podcast to reach more people. And the way you can help us with that is to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with your bookish friends. We have loved getting to see so many people join the Facebook group, inviting their friends, Sim. So we'd love to have you do the same.
Been amazing.
Until then, stay reading. We'll catch you next time. Sim, I believe you have a quote to end on.
I love the way that each book, any book, is its own journey. You open it and off you go. And that's from American children's author Sharon Creech.
1032. Thanks for listening.